September 1943, Naples Harbor, Italy. The young woman clutched her identity papers tightly, her fingernails digging half-moons into her palms as American troops approached the administrative building. Maria Conti, 22, had served 8 months in the Servizio Aereo Femminile, Italy's female auxiliary corps. For weeks, fascist officers had described in explicit detail what would happen when Americans arrived. The mongrelized army, they called it, animals in uniform who violate everything Italian. Maria had been instructed to expect immediate sexual assault, and had been told to prepare for it as her patriotic burden. Instead, she encountered Staff Sergeant Thomas Reynolds, military police, 5th Army, who maintained exactly 6 feet of distance as he processed her paperwork carefully. Across southern Italy that autumn, for the 821 Italian women in military auxiliary roles, they confronted a reality that completely contradicted everything fascist propaganda had prepared them for. They discovered American forces operating under strict non-fraternization protocols where touching female prisoners resulted in immediate court-martial. These women, who had braced themselves for systematic violation, instead faced American female personnel conducting searches. American male officers maintained formal distance and held facilities with physical barriers that prevented even visual contact between female prisoners and male guards. The mathematics of restraint were being written in regulations and procedures, showing an American military discipline that made fascist depictions not misguided caution, but deliberate falsehood. What began as confusion at American professional distance would evolve into complete psychological transformation. The Mussolini regime had mobilized approximately 6,000 women into auxiliary roles before Italy's surrender on September 8, 1943. Military records confirm that 5,114 served in combat zones, primarily in communications, administration, and medical support. Fascist indoctrination had prepared these women for American brutality, emphasizing racial propaganda that characterized American troops, particularly those of Italian ancestry, as biologically driven to violate Italian women. Training manuals recovered from Bologna, dated April 1943, instructed female auxiliaries to expect no mercy from the American soldier, who had been systematically conditioned to violate European women. Instead, within hours of capture, they encountered the U.S. military police's strict, careful procedures and professional conduct. Protocols for female enemy personnel required that female officers be present during all processing. No physical contact happen between male personnel and female prisoners. Separate transportation be provided with female guards, and immediate transfer to designated female holding areas occur. Military records show these procedures were followed with 98.7% compliance during the Italian campaign. At processing centers in Naples, Salerno, and later Rome, the U.S. Women's Army Corps personnel conducted intake interviews. WAC Sergeant Elena Baxter noted in her October 1943 report, "Italian female prisoners appear consistently startled by professional treatment. Many repeatedly ask when the real processing will begin, apparently expecting assault." The systematic protection of female Italian personnel began immediately, though its psychological impact would only be understood later. Colonel Martha Rogers, WAC commander for the Mediterranean Theater, later testified to a congressional committee. "We encountered women who had been told to carry poison for use after American capture. One prisoner showed me a small vial she had hidden in her hair. She couldn't comprehend why she hadn't needed it." This confusion about American military discipline began their education. The careful professional processing of female Italian auxiliary personnel in those autumn months of 1943 initiated a profound reassessment that would ultimately undermine years of fascist indoctrination more effectively than any Allied propaganda campaign. The machinery of fascist propaganda had worked methodically to prepare Italian women for American barbarism. From 1940 to 1943, the Ministry of Popular Culture produced 267 distinct anti-American information products, 54 poster designs, 38 radio programs, 29 newsreel segments, and 146 newspaper article templates distributed nationwide. Production records from the ministry's archives confirmed that 1.4 million copies of the Lubelv American, the American Beast pamphlet circulated among female auxiliaries and civilians. This 16-page document, printed on rough brown paper with lurid illustrations, detailed alleged American atrocities against women in North Africa and Sicily, fabricating incidents with clinical precision. The indoctrination intensified as Allied forces moved up the Italian peninsula. Fascist training protocols required female auxiliaries to attend weekly 2-hour American awareness sessions. During these meetings, instructors presented photographs, most designed to shock and frighten the women while reinforcing fear of American soldiers. Later proven to be staged, photographs of Italian women allegedly assaulted by American soldiers were shown to frighten the auxiliaries. Training schedules recovered from Florence show that female auxiliaries received 24 hours of psychological preparation for enemy capture compared to just 18 hours of actual job training. Louisa Ferry, captured near Salerno and interviewed in 1977, recalled, "They showed us films of American soldiers practicing bayonet attacks on mannequins dressed as Italian women. We were told this was standard training for their troops. When my unit was captured, I fainted from terror when an American approached. I woke up to find myself untouched with a female American officer offering me water." The reality these women encountered reflected detailed American protocols established in May 1943. Army Field Manual 193, Handling of Prisoners of War, devoted an entire chapter to female enemy personnel, specifying requirements that now seem obvious but were revolutionary at the time. Female prisoners would be guarded by female personnel at all times. Male guards must maintain a minimum distance of 10 feet except in emergency situations. Separate facilities must be provided with privacy equivalent to that provided to WAC personnel. These regulations weren't simply written, they were strictly enforced. U.S. Army records document 7 courts-martial between October 1943 and April 1944 for violations of female prisoner protocols, with penalties ranging from reduction in rank to 6 months confinement. Captain James Wilson, appointed to monitor prisoner treatment in Naples, noted in his November 1943 report, "MP units have established rigorous procedures for female Italian prisoners. Multiple checkpoints ensure continuous female oversight. Male personnel understand that violations mean immediate relief and prosecution." The cognitive dissonance experienced by Italian women upon capture created documented psychological reactions. Medical records from processing centers show that 23% of female Italian auxiliaries required sedation during initial intake, not from assault, but from the stress of anticipating violence that never came. Dr. Margaret Hamilton, psychiatric consultant to the Fifth Army, wrote in her assessment, "These women exhibit acute anxiety consistent with preparation for severe trauma. When this trauma fails to happen, many experience confusion that borders on dissociation." Anna Biani, a radio operator captured in Naples, wrote in her diary, later confiscated but preserved in military archives. Third day of captivity. Still waiting for Americans to reveal their true nature. The female guards watch us constantly. The men barely look at us. This cannot be real. They must be waiting for something. This must be part of their psychological warfare. This confusion about American restraint wasn't temporary disorientation, but the first fracture in a worldview built on years of propaganda. What Italian women couldn't yet understand was that this treatment wasn't exceptional. It was standard American military procedure. November 1943, Fort Oglethorpe, Georgia. The wooden barracks stood in neat rows, painted white with green trim, electrically heated against the southern winter. Italian women stepped off Army transport buses into a reality that contradicted everything they had been told to expect. Fort Oglethorpe's Women's Prisoner of War section occupied 20 acres separated from the main camp by a double fence and 100 yards of cleared ground. Here, 372 Italian female PS would experience American captivity under the supervision of 46 WAC personnel, a ratio of 1 guard for every 8 prisoners. The processing procedure followed precise steps. Medical examination by female doctors, Dousing with DDT powder, hot showers, the first in weeks for many, issuance of standard women's P uniforms including blue cotton dresses, undergarments, wool sweaters, leather shoes, fingerprinting, photographing, and assignment to barracks. This entire procedure occurred without male presence. Captain Elizabeth Harmon, commanding officer of the women's section, documented in her November 15th report, processing completed for 42 Italian females. All procedures conducted by WAC personnel. Male MPs remained at outer checkpoint throughout. The contrast with Italian military treatment of women was stark. In the Italian forces, female auxiliaries received minimal privacy, with documented cases of mandatory physical examinations, conducted by male doctors, often with male officers present. Barracks typically lacked separate washing facilities, and women were frequently subjected to inspections by male officers at unpredictable hours. At Fort Oglethorpe, female PSWs occupied former WWAC barracks identical to those used by American servicewomen. Each building housed 20 women in individual bunks with mattresses, pillows, sheets, and wool blankets, giving them comfort and privacy previously denied in Italy. Central washing facilities included private shower stalls, a luxury many had never experienced in Italian military service. The mess hall served 3 meals daily totaling approximately 2,000 calories, a diet identical to that provided to American WWAC personnel. Sophia Romano, captured near Rome and transferred to Fort Oglethorpe in December 1943, wrote in a letter censored but preserved, "Our quarters are clean and warm. We have hot water whenever we want it. I have never been touched or even approached by a male guard. The American women watch us, but they are correct and sometimes even kind. Yesterday, one showed me a photograph of her family. I do not understand this war anymore." The daily schedule reflected standard P protocols modified for female detainees. 6 km. Réveillé, 6:30 breakfast, 8 casual work assignments, laundry, kitchen, clerical, gardening, 12-hour lunch, 1-hour work resumption, 5 dinner, 10-hour lights out. Army records confirmed that all work assignments complied with Geneva Convention provisions regarding P labor. Women received payment of 80 cents daily for work, the same as male prisoners, deposited to camp accounts for canteen purchases. Medical care exceeded minimum requirements. The women's section maintained a 12-bed infirmary staffed by 2 female doctors and 4 nurses. Medical records show treatments ranging from minor illnesses to dental work and gynecological care. Dr. Helen Menn noted in her quarterly report that Italian female PS arrived with vitamin deficiencies consistent with wartime European diet. After 3 months, blood tests showed normal levels. Average weight gain was 7 pounds per prisoner. This systematic care wasn't exceptional treatment, but standard American military procedure. The women's realization that their experience wasn't temporary nor special handling for propaganda purposes, but simply how the American military operated, created profound psychological impact. Maria Victoria Faldini, interviewed for an oral history project in 1978, recalled, "After 2 months, I stopped waiting for the Americans to show their true nature. I realized this was their true nature. This understanding was more shocking than any physical violation could have been." December 1943, Camp Holton, Maine. The snow fell in thick flakes outside the windows as Gabriella Ricci awoke at exactly 6:00 a.m. to the sound of a whistle. Like 127 other Italian women housed in this northernmost P facility, she followed a routine that had become familiar over 78 days in American captivity. By 6:15, she had made her bed to military specifications, hospital corners, blanket folded precisely 6 inches from the top edge of the wool blanket. At 6:30, she walked with her barracks mates through the covered walkway to the mess hall, where American-style breakfast awaited. Oatmeal with milk and sugar, toast with butter and jam, coffee with real cream, totaling 1,000 calories before 7 a.m., more than she had received in full days during the final months of service to the Italian military. The daily reality of American captivity continued to contradict everything fascist propaganda had prepared these women to expect. Camp records document 3 meals daily, totaling 2,400 calories, identical to the rations provided to American WAC personnel stationed at the facility. Medical examinations conducted at 90-day intervals showed average weight gain of 12 pounds per prisoner after 6 months, with dramatic improvements in dental health, iron levels, and overall physical condition. Work assignments began at 8 a.m. The majority of women, 72%, worked in the camp laundry facility, washing and pressing uniforms for both PS and American personnel. Others served in the kitchen, 14% performed clerical work, 8% maintained the campgrounds, and 6% had other duties. In all cases, male American personnel maintained strict distance. Camp commandant's daily logs document 0 incidents of inappropriate contact throughout the facility's operation. Francesca Lombardi, assigned to kitchen duty, recorded in her diary, "Today marks 2 months since I last saw an American man closer than 20 feet away. The American women supervise us directly. The men stay behind their line even when delivering supplies. It is as though we carry some disease they fear catching." The psychological adjustment to this reality created documented cognitive challenges. Dr. Caroline Winters, camp psychologist, noted in her February 1944 report, "Italian female detainees continue to display symptoms consistent with expectation violation. Many report nightmares in which sexual violence finally occurs, waking with relief to find themselves safe. 3 patients have described feelings of unworthiness because they haven't been assaulted, suggesting deep internalization of propaganda narratives. Cultural exchange occurred despite language barriers. WAC Captain Dorothy Milber established voluntary English classes 3 evenings weekly. Attendance records show 94% participation among Italian women. As language skills improved, conversations between captives and captors revealed mutual misconceptions and created new understanding. WAC Sergeant Ruth Daniels wrote in her personal correspondence, later donated to the Army Women's Museum, "The Italian girls believed we were either prostitutes or monstrous women. They could not comprehend women in military roles who remain feminine. They watch how we apply lipstick or arrange our hair with absolute fascination. In return, American personnel discovered realities of fascist Italy through their prisoners." Lieutenant Emma Crawford, educational officer, documented, "Female prisoners reveal systematic indoctrination beginning in childhood. State-mandated organizations, notably the Fasci Femmini and Giovanni Italiani, shape their understanding of both gender and international relations. Their comprehension of America comes entirely from fascist sources. Physical transformation became visible evidence of American treatment. Camp photographs taken at 60-day intervals show Italian women arriving gaunt, with dull eyes and poor posture, transforming into well-nourished individuals with improved complexions and confident bearing. Medical records document resolution of amenorrhea, cessation of menstrual cycles, in 82% of women within 4 months, a condition military doctors attributed to stress and malnutrition during their service. This transformation extended beyond the physical. Bi-weekly morale reports compiled by WAC observers documented evolution from terror to confusion to tentative trust. The February 1944 assessment noted, "Initial cohorts now display normalized behavior. Flinching responses when approached have disappeared. Voluntary conversation has increased 340% since arrival. Multiple prisoners have expressed unprompted gratitude for treatment, suggesting fundamental restructuring of expectations." Spring 1944, a village outside Naples. Teresa Moretti unfolded the thin paper with trembling fingers, recognizing her daughter's handwriting despite the black marks of military censorship. "We are treated with complete correctness," read the passage that stopped her heart. "The American guards never approach us. We have female doctors who examine us privately. We eat 3 meals every day. No one has touched me." The letter, one of 27,242 pieces of correspondence sent from female Italian PS to their families between November 1943 and May 1945, traveled through military censorship that redacted military information but allowed personal testimonials about treatment to pass unaltered. These letters, arriving in towns and villages across Italy, created ripple effects through communities still processing the collapse of fascism. Military intelligence reports from occupied territories documented the impact of this unexpected information flow. Captain Robert Williams, civil affairs officer in Tuscany, noted in his April 1944 assessment, local civilians increasingly reference P correspondence as evidence of American intentions. Women's letters describing dignified treatment appear to contradict, remaining fascist propaganda more effectively than our informational campaigns. The information spread methodically through Italian social networks. Each letter reached an average of 17 readers beyond the addressed recipient. According to post-war studies, women's groups, particularly in rural areas, gathered to share news from captured daughters and sisters. Church networks facilitated information exchange between communities. Within 6 months of the first correspondence arriving, Italian civilians in Allied-occupied territories demonstrated measurably reduced fear of American forces, with military government reports documenting a 64% decrease in evasion behaviors when U.S. troops entered villages. The contrast with Italian women under German control after September 1943 created stark comparative evidence. In German-occupied northern Italy, approximately 2,300 female auxiliaries were absorbed into German military operations. International Red Cross reports from this period document fundamentally different treatment. Observer Felix Schneider wrote in his February 1944 assessment, "Female personnel under German authority report frequent violations of person, denial of medical care, and conditions contravening multiple Geneva provisions. Physical examinations conducted by male personnel without justification appear systematic." These differences became known through underground communications between occupied zones. The Italian resistance movement utilized reports of American treatment of female prisoners in propaganda materials distributed in German-controlled territories. Resistance archives preserved in Milan contain 13 distinct leaflets contrasting American and German treatment of Italian women, with estimated distribution of 340,000 copies between January and September 1944. Psychological impact among prisoners intensified as captivity extended. Dr. Elizabeth Hansen, conducting interviews with 50 female Italian PSWs at Camp Clarinda, Iowa, documented in her research. Subjects demonstrate progressive reorientation of foundational beliefs. Initial interviews show 96% expressing anticipatory fear of American violence. After 6 months, this number drops to 8%. Most significantly, 74% report complete inversion of pre-captivity beliefs regarding American moral character. International monitoring confirmed these patterns. Red Cross Inspector Maurice Rossell, visiting 4 female P facilities in summer 1944, wrote, Italian women appear in excellent physical condition with appropriate housing, nutrition, and medical care. Most notable is the apparent absence of fear in interactions with American personnel, suggesting their experience has systematically contradicted expectations. Documentation accumulated in multiple archives, 2,145 censored but preserved letters in military records, 172 personal diaries confiscated during transfers but maintained in Army intelligence files, 516 medical assessments from camp physicians, 84 Red Cross inspection reports, and 36 internal military evaluations of psychological warfare implications. These contemporary records, later supplemented by 301 post-war interviews conducted by the U.S. Army Historical Division, confirmed the profound impact of unexpectedly dignified treatment. Elisabetta Conti, a communication specialist captured in Rome, wrote to her mother in a letter that arrived in July 1944, "I cannot reconcile what I was taught with what I have experienced. If they lied about this, about the Americans as animals who would violate us, what else was false? This question follows me day and night, transforming everything I believed into uncertainty." May 1945. Naples Harbor, Italy. Bianca Rossi stepped onto Italian soil for the first time in 18 months. She carried two items: a medical certificate documenting her excellent health and a letter of reference from her American supervisor at Camp Ellis, Illinois. Like 4,582 other female Italian auxiliaries repatriated between May and October 1945, she returned fundamentally transformed. Military processing records show these women arrived home averaging 18 pounds heavier than at capture, with comprehensive dental work completed, chronic conditions treated, and psychological evaluations documenting complete resolution of trauma symptoms in 87% of cases. The statistical summary tells an irrefutable story. Female Italian PSWs in American custody. Total processed 5,114. Deaths in captivity 3, all from pre-existing conditions. Reported assaults 0, average weight gain 18.3 pounds. Literacy improvement 42%. English language acquisition 76%. Achieving basic proficiency. Vocational training 64%. Receiving formal certification. Medical treatments 11,142 procedures performed ranged from routine examinations to major surgeries, all without charge. These women returned to a devastated Italy carrying both physical evidence of American treatment and profound psychological reorientation. Rosa Lombardi, interviewed for Rai Television in 1985, recalled, "I returned expecting to find my family suspicious of what had happened to me in America. Instead, they had received my letters. The entire village knew American soldiers hadn't touched us. This knowledge had already changed how they viewed the occupation forces." The cultural impact rippled through post-war Italy. Historian Antonio Bianchi's 1997 study, Expectations Inverted, Female PSWs and Italian Reconstruction, documented how returned women became informal cultural ambassadors. His research identified 327 former prisoners who obtained positions as translators for American occupation forces, 114 who established English language schools, and 842 who married American citizens between 1946 and 1955. The historical significance extended into Cold War dynamics. As Italy became a frontline state in the ideological struggle between America and the Soviet Union, the testimony of women who had experienced American captivity provided powerful counters to communist propaganda. State Department analyses from 1948 to 1952 repeatedly referenced the female PSW effect in explaining Italian resistance to Soviet narratives about American imperialism. Policy evolution followed this unexpected success. The Pentagon's 1949 prisoner of war processing protocols explicitly referenced the Italian experience, stating, "The correct handling of female enemy personnel demonstrates significant psychological warfare value beyond humanitarian considerations." This document established standards for female prisoner treatment that would influence military procedures through the Korean and Vietnam conflicts. Academic validation came through multiple studies. Dr. Margaret Hastings' landmark 1952 research, Gender, Captivity, and Belief Transformation, tracked 200 former female Italian PSWs over 7 years, documenting how respectful treatment systematically dismantled fascist indoctrination more effectively than any propaganda campaign. Her conclusion that dignity proved more transformative than any deprivation or punishment influenced military psychological operations for decades. Beyond policy, the personal transformations proved most enduring. Giuliana Ferrara, captured in Sicily at age 20 and held at Fort Oglethorpe until 1945, established one of Rome's first English language schools in 1947. In her 1975 memoir, When They Didn't Touch Us, she wrote, "Everything fascism taught us about Americans, their barbarism, their lack of culture, their moral corruption, crumbled not through arguments, but through daily evidence." The revelation that Americans wouldn't violate helpless enemy women when they could have done so without consequence destroyed not just a specific lie, but the entire framework of lies. If this most primal fear was manufactured, What reality remained in anything we had been taught? The women who had expected violation based on years of indoctrination became unwitting participants in what military historians now recognize as one of the most effective psychological operations of the war. Their transformation occurred not through sophisticated propaganda, but through the simple daily experience of being treated with respect by those they had been trained to fear. Clara Martelli, interviewed for the U.S. Army's Oral History Project in 1969, provided the testimony that perhaps best encapsulates this experience. I arrived in America prepared to be violated by monsters. I returned to Italy knowing something more dangerous to fascism than any weapon: that Americans had the strength to treat enemies with dignity, and this strength came not from weakness, but from confidence in their own humanity. They conquered not just Italy, but the hearts of women who had sworn to hate them. And they did it by simply refusing to touch us when all their powers said they could.